Hello everybody, Zelfie here, and today I wanted to make a video about a Gym Leader Challenge deck. If you don't know what Gym Leader Challenge is, it is a format where you're only allowed to run one copy of each card. So as you can see here, I got like one copy of all my Pokemon here, one copy of all of these, with the only exception of Basic Energy. It is expanded, so it's black and white and onwards. There are no rule box Pokemon, so you can't run like a Radiant Pokemon or a Prism Star EX, a V, GX. All that stuff is basically banned. And lastly, is that you have to play in a monotype format. So I'm only allowed to run Grass Pokemon in this deck, for example. Uh, that's where the Gym Leader part comes from. With that said, this is a deck I wanted to build around the Lupulasa Venusaur. Because this is a single tin format, it means you only get so many copies of Guzma or Boss's Orders. You can only basically run, Boss's Orders and Guzma, and then you can also run like VS Seeker to grab it back, or Lucamine or Cynthia and Caitlyn to get it back. But I mean, otherwise, it's like really tough to repeat that Boss's Orders effect. So having it on a Pokemon that gets to do this every turn is super strong. Granted, it's on a coin flip, but you should only need to rely on so many coin flips if you're planning everything out and have a decent enough setup that it'll win you the game, right? On top of that, it also makes the new active Asleep and Poison, which we have cards that can synergize with that, such as the character rare Roserade. One of the benefits of using this Roserade is the fact that it won't cost you $30 to run the Drizzle one, basically. So there's a 2012 Roserade that basically allows you to search your deck for any card when you evolve into it. But that card is super expensive. And not to mention, you get to run the really cool character rare if you're playing this version. So, you use Lupulasa to pull something up, and then you can Assassin's Rose to do enough damage that it won't KO whatever you're attacking, but you can also do spread damage to something else and start plucking away at the opponent's HP that way. So yeah, these were the two main cards I wanted to build around because I felt like they offered some very aggressive but controlling tools, right? Because like you get to control what the opponent is setting up and how they're unable to maneuver around it. But at the same time, you're not like being completely passive. You're still applying pressure in that sense. And so that's where I wanted to go. I feel like it's basically mandatory that every grass deck runs the Turtwig line. So Turtwig himself allows you to grab a grass energy and attach it to something else. Grotle allows you to search your deck for a grass Pokemon and put it into your hand. Grass has quite a few of these, but then you evolve into Torterra, who has a massive 190 HP. And then for 2 energy, allows you to do 50 times the amount of evolutions you have in play. So you can knock out basically anything in the game with three Pokemon play, you're doing 150, and that'll knock out most Pokemon. If you go to 4, which is also very much possible, you can knock out everything that isn't Wailord with a special energy or like Potlet attached. And then if you get 5 Pokemon play, then everything's fine, and there's no way you can survive that. That's like Torterra's strength. Is that this whole line is phenomenal. I didn't even get to talk about the rest of the Venusaur line, which is still pretty respectable. We have the Ivysaur here, which allows you to search your deck for 2 Pokemon and add them to your hand. So this just helps you even further set quickly. Grab Venusaur, and then you grab something else, and then you're cooking. And then the Bulbasaur here, you get a choice between 2 of them. So you can run the Detective Pikachu Bulbasaur, which has this ability that allows you to search for a grass Pokemon in your deck and add it to your hand. Very solid in the early game, like if you're going second, just attach it to grass energy. That's a good way to help you get set up like into an Ivysaur, which could search you out more, or into a Turtwig, or just something else. Alternatively, if you don't like these 2 options, you can also run the Next Destiny's Ivysaur. As a heads up, this one is quite expensive. The reason why you'd want to run this is not because of like the text on it, but because it has 90 HP, which means it's level searchable. And then the other Bulbasaur you could possibly run in this slot is the new one from the illustration contest from 2022. And it says flip a coin until you get tails for each head, so you can draw a card. So just depending on whether or not you value the put one Pokemon to your hand or the ability to draw into more cards that can help you set up even more on the next turn, is really up to you. This one also has 70 HP, which does matter just a little bit. So it's your choice on which of these you want to run. Personally, I'd probably run the illustration one over this, and I'll stick with the Pokemon Go one just because I find the consistent ability to grab 2 Pokemon is really, really helpful as opposed to the Level Ball Searchable one. This line's, we already talked about it, and then we're also running the Beautifly line. Having a way to draw out of the end-to-end or a Bad Marty is really good in the late game, especially because we need so many tools in order to keep our opponent locked down and produce our own game plan. We really struggle in the early game, so having ways to combat like destructive late game cards and Beautifly is super solid. This is probably going to be the optimal line you're running. This one just allows you to sometimes like stall out the opponent if you need to, and this one flicks the status on the opponent, which is just solid because it triggers Venomoth and Roserade, which we'll get to. Can't really think of any other one you'd want to run. Like maybe you want to run some of them that have damage, but this is just fine. For the Decidueye line, this one is extremely solid at just helping you to pluck off damage, because sometimes you'll Loopy Lasso something, pull it up, and then it'll wake up, and so you don't want it to retreat, but you kind of like need to pull something else up, and you will. But that remaining ball will have damage on it, so that's where Tracking Shot comes into play. This is like your big cleaner move right here that you can use to pick off like a lot of odds at once. Tracking Shot is just incredibly popular. But it is also just like decently strong too. On top of the fact that it's a double colorless, it means that you can attach a capture energy to it. And that's like a huge benefit of a lot of these mods, is that these ones are pretty contingent on grass, so unfortunately you can't do much there. But like Evopress requires a colorless. You won't be using this much, but this requires a colorless. This one has 2 colorless. This one has 1 colorless, 1 colorless. This is a grass, so capture can fit in somewhere. Dartrix is not all that strong when you compare it to everything else. You might use it just to set up a Decidueye on the following turn, but the Rowlet itself is actually pretty strong because Windshard does 60, and 60 is quite a bit, especially on a basic. Especially if you reach like a late game state where you've dealt enough damage to a lot of mods. Rowlet can help clean up something super easily that was staying down, poisoned for quite a bit. On top of that, we also do run the Bird Keeper that turns us on for free, so good stuff overall. And then we have the Venomoth here, allows you to do 90 to the bench if something is poisoned. This is another great way of like pulling something up into the active that's not going to do anything, and then being able to do damage to the bench and not force them to set something else up. And we're taking full advantage of Venusaur's ability to control the pace of the game. Roserade does a similar thing. Roserade is also pretty similar to Venomoth, where it can set up like, it can poison the opponent for 1 grass energy, and then Assassin's Rose does damage to the active and to the bench. So, unlike Venomoth, this is more like Decidueye, where you can use it to take down 2 Pokemon at once. Just super solid. And then finally we have the Celebi here, which allows you to ignore ability. So, the most relevant card I can think of is this ignores like any of the ability locks, such as Glaring Wheezing or Wobbuffet, for example, which allows you to still use Leap Through Time, which works everywhere, and it can prevent your opponent from taking prizes. So you can end up with these locks where Celebi will keep shuffling itself back into the deck, and then you can use like Grotle, for example, to pull it back out, retreat back into Celebi, and just let it do its thing for a while. Like a super annoying and strong card. Sparkle Motion is also nice because it just sets up chip damage on everything. It can allow you to like get a KO on a 70 HP basic with Assassin's Rose, or just to turn on Decidueye later in the game. So super solid card here for stalling after time, creating locks. It works super well in tandem with Venusaur. Basically everything in this deck is super reliant on Venusaur. Outside the Beautifly, which is just for draw, and the Torterra, who's just super strong on his own. Everything is contingent around Venusaur. So that's why we end up running a lot of like the Ordinary Rod, the Super Rod, and the Revitalizer here in order to make sure we can get them back. For our like supporter line, we have Ball Guy here. Ball Guy is a must in any grass deck because grass is the only type that has a ball that also grabs an energy card. So unlike in other ones where I feel like you could run like some other flexible supporter, like a Winona or a Lance, for example, Ball Guy grabs you like any of the balls here, and then also grabs you that ball, which grabs you a basic energy, which is so solid. Everything else, like Ball Guy, is okay, and but he's not mandatory like I feel like he is in grass. Gloria is super solid. We have so many Pokemon that need to evolve. So Gloria is like mandatory for being able to get set up extremely quickly, especially because a lot of these are stage twos. Like we need Beautifly and Venusaur out as quickly as possible, and then like Dartrix isn't that great, but we want Decidueye out at some point in the game to help clean up. So Gloria is super important because she grabs like Turtwig, Bulbasaur, and Wurmple all at the same time. And if you already have one of these, then you could just grab like Sableye or Roselia or something else along the lines of that. Sonya is pretty flexible because we don't have a lot of energy in the deck, so it gives us an option to both search out energy and to grab two basic Pokemon. Just another like consistent way of getting ourselves set up here that's also flexible. N allows us to control our opponent's hand in the late game. So maybe they've taken like two prizes by the time that we get our Venusaur lock set up. We can, put their huge hand into the deck and then go from there. Same thing with Marty too, just a very disruptive supporter. You can see your opponent like grab something, like they might like Lusamine or grab like any card basically that they can't play immediately, but is there. And Marty's just like a good way to be like, nope. And Cynthia's also like consistently good too at just drawing you into a new set of cards. I'd say that the deck has like, I'm not sure if it's a research deck or not because you can't really recover most of your tools. Most of the tools I feel like are like burn stuff. And so when you don't have burn stuff, you have cards you need to be holding on to. So I'm not sure if this is a Professor's Research deck. I'm running Tantalizer because I think switching cards are extremely potent, and Tantalize is also just shuffle draw effect, and it draws you up to 5, which can be refilled with Beautifly, so it's super solid. Birdkeeper, another switching card for the bigger dudes, and it triggers Rowlet, which is a phenomenal card. Hitting for 60 is like super strong, I feel like, especially when you're racking up damage with Sparkle Motion, for example. We have Guzma. I'm still running a Boss's Orders in the deck effect because sometimes Loopy Lasso just doesn't work, and you need something that's like quick and reactive and consistent. Guzma will get you there. You really don't want to run Boss, I feel like, because you have 3 ways of swapping out with the Floatstone, the U-turn board, and the Venomoth who is for your treat. So just roll with the Guzma. It's fine. I'm running Lusamine, and I feel like Lusamine is just like really strong with our set of supporters that we have between like the Birdkeeper and the Raihan and the Guzma, and we could grab back the Virbank City Gym, which adds an additional tick of damage to all these times we're poisoning the opponent. So we can run like Poison Barb on the Celebi. They'll poison, everything gets shuffled back into the deck, and then they take like extra damage. And the Venusaur will help the pile on extra damage as well. So I think Virbank is like super solid in that regard. And Lusamine is like one of the only reasonable ways of grabbing it back. Cynthia and Caitlyn, I'm running because I think Tag Hole is an amazing card. It's similar to like how people think of Ball Guy, because Ball Guy searches your deck of 3 cards, and those 3 cards are typically grabbing 3 more cards. So this is a great deck fitter, and Cynthia and Caitlyn works off a Tag Hole. Though, if you didn't want to run Tag Hole, you could take them out, and I feel like you'd be fine, because you're getting into like a redundant category of like you have VS Seeker, and you have Cynthia and Caitlyn, and then you also have Lusamine, so it might be too much. Guzhala, I think, is super mandatory, though, just because Guzmahala grabs you so many cards. He grabs you, most importantly, he'll grab you, like, either a Floatstone, U-turn board, or Poison Barb, depending on, like, how much you have set up. He grab you a Turffield Stadium, which grabs you Pokemon, and he also grabs you Capture Energy, which grabs you another Pokemon. He can also grab you a Aromatic Energy. I was only running the basic grasses at first, but I swapped it over to Aromatic, just because, like, some of these do require grass energy, and being able to fetch out off Goose Hall is pretty good. And capture is also pretty good. So you have like two ways of grabbing Pokemon, and then one way of retreating or setting up your win condition. And finally, is Raihan. All our attackers are super cheap. So this is 2 energy. This is 2 energy or 1 energy. This is 1 energy. This is 2 energy. This is 1 energy. So Raihan just helps destroy a lot of attackers, and we don't really have to run any other form of energy ramp. So he's just super consistent. And grabbing a card from your deck is always going to be hella strong. For our balls, we're running Hisuian Heavy Ball because personally, I love checking my prizes. I will, like, in a long day of playing games, I don't want to have to take a note on like all my cards, and especially in GLC when it's hard to track everything. So having Heavy Ball is just like a huge mind. Like it settles my mind knowing that I can just look at my prizes, write down those cards there without having to search through everything, right? Nest Ball is super good. You're just gonna put something down. It's gonna ignore like Get Drop Hog, for example. Super solid card. Quick Ball is okay. It does the same thing as like Nest Ball. Net Ball is phenomenal because you can use it off a ball guy and then grab a basic grass energy or a Pokemon. So super solid effect. Level Ball is fine. I wish it was like better because most of the like Pokemon we really want to be grabbing, like we want to grab Ivysaur super badly because it helps us set up into our win condition, and then like we also want to grab Grotle, right? Those are the 2 big ones that we can't grab off a level ball, and the other like targets that are like level ball searchable that aren't basic searchable is like just these 3 right here. These 3 are so whatever most of the time. So level ball is like okay, but it could be better. And then we have Ultra Ball. Ultra Ball is just a catch-all. It helps to discard cards for Beautifly. It's pretty good. Tag Call is a great deck thinner because I'll grab out Gooseholla and Cynthia Caitlyn. They're both good because, you know, this is going to be your setup for turn 1, and then on the following turn, you like grab Gooseholla back, I guess, but it's also just like a guaranteed, like, hey, I can draw 3 cards next turn if I need to. Random Receiver helps us to pluck out hopefully any of the like 9 to 10 supporters up here. Cynthia Caitlyn, Lucidine, and Raihan are not that great at the beginning, but like these 9 up here plus the Guzma are like super solid hits off the receiver. Trainer's Mail just helps us to dig a little more. We got like a huge trainer account, and a lot of ways to just draw ourselves into better positions. So I think it's important. Professor's Letter is one of my own takes of the deck because we don't run a whole lot of energies. It's going to be hard to draw into them. So even though we have like Netball and Sonia, I want like Professor's Letter to help ground them back. We have like, so between like Netball, Sonia, and Professor's Letter, we have like 5 energies we can grab, which is like overkill since we only have 4. But I feel like it's perfectly fine. It allows us to like not be like, okay, I have everything set up, now I can't find my energy. We have Evosoda and Evo Incense in here. These are like our ways of getting set up. I actually don't know how strongly I feel about these because you can't grab these off the ball guy. And most of the time, you're grabbing evolutions off the Turffield, so they're like okay. So, I'm not gonna cut them, but they don't feel as important. We got 3 Pokemon recovery cards here. We got Revitalizer, Orion Rod, and Super Rod. Decidueye is like one of our biggest damage dealers, but we'll probably be using Decidueye quite a bit because like Rowlet's capable on his own, and sometimes we just have to throw out a squishy dude. On top of that, like we don't want like Grotle, or we don't want like this going down super early. So having all these ways to recover stuff is super nice. That said, you might be able to cut one of these and get away with it. I'm just not sure what it would be. Revitalizer is pretty strong, especially with the Celebi, who can immediately come back out into play. And you can do stuff like, you know, Celebi goes down, and then Decidueye goes down, and then you can, like, put Pokemon back into the deck, and then grab the other 2 later. So, like, maybe, like, Ordinary Rod, Rowlet, and Celebi back in, and then you, like, Nest Ball and Quick Ball then back out, and you Revitalizer for the Dartrix and the Decidueye later, just as, like, an idea of, like, what you could do. VS Seeker is basically mandatory in every deck. Like, it's VS Seeker. It's just gonna replay you one of these cards. This is pretty good. It's one of the reasons why I like Sonia in here, because Sonia can, like, grab you basics at first, and then you can be a Seeker, grab energies later. Gloria's not a good hit. Ball Guy's okay. But I feel like you'll probably be hitting most of your balls early on. And then, like, grabbing Guzma is really good, or any of these switch cards, for example. And you could also re-grab Raihan immediately without having to play a supporter to get him, which is so good. Raihan is so phenomenal. We have Rare Candy because, I mean, we have 4 Stage 2 lines, so Rare Candy is so strong. And I'm running a Hypnotoxic Laser, just because it helps to enable the Venomoth and the Roserade when we don't hit it. So we could possibly, like, Raihan for it, for example. And then for the energy count, I'm running 4 basics, which is just enough. We'll be able to consistently grab, like, them off the Sonia or the Netball, for example. And that's super nice because we want at least 1 basic in the discard, just for Raihan's sake. Aromatic allows us to stuff out Wheezing. Aromatic would be like really good on Celebi, for example, because then we can stop Wheezing from making any progress against us. It would just block the poison, and then obviously the ability still works. So game be at a stalemate, their Wheezing wouldn't be doing anything. Counter Energy is just super solid. It helps to trigger Roserade and Decidueye and Torterra. They all benefit off the counter. And like I said, we're a slower deck. We're definitely not going to be pushing for the aggressive board state super quickly. And then Catch Energy is super strong. What he could grab off Guzma. We already talked about like the Ivysaur, which he could run if you want to. I still think I prefer this one, not just for Rowlet's sake, but I think I like the ability to search for 2 Pokemon. But the other 2 cards I'm thinking about are Koga's Trap, because this is like a consistent way to get status out, similar to Hypnotoxic Laser, and we have a lot of supporter recovery between the Seeker, Lucamine, and Cynthia Caitlyn, so grabbing this could be nice, because sometimes the play can just be like, grab Virbank and Koga's Trap off of the Lucamine, and help the stall for even longer, so it's hard to tell whether or not I think this is like an include. It might go in over like Hypnotoxic Laser, but I feel like even then, that makes like Koga's Trap worse, because, yeah, I'm not sure. So, you might need to swap between these 2. And we also have Timer Ball here. And Timer Ball is like solid. I think out of the balls, the 2 most cuttable, it's like tough, because you want all your basic search, but between like Sonia, Gloria, Ball Guy, like Quick Ball is definitely like the worst of the basic searching options, because Level Ball is going to grab you, you know, all the basics anyways. We all have anything bigger than 90. So this is a basic search, this is a basic search, and this one grabs the energy, or a basic. So Quick Ball feels like kind of redundant, including Hisuian Heavy Ball. So you might want to do like take out Quick Ball and take Timer Ball. But even then, like having basic search is so good when you don't hit the Ball Guy that I'm not sure which of these that you would cut. So maybe it's like, you know, what is it? Level Ball is all the basic search you need, and sometimes it grabs you an evolution. I'd say otherwise, then like maybe you cut like Level Ball, but that also doesn't make sense. So you know, your cuts are either the Ultra Ball, because the Ultra Ball is like super costly to use, or you cut the Quick Ball because you have a lot of basic search already, and then you could go ahead and throw in the Timer Ball instead. But that's really up to you. Otherwise, that's basically it for like my deck explanation here. Is yeah, it's a super fun deck, and for like the general game plan, you'll be going for. Let me fix this because it's bothering me. For the general game plan you're going for, you want to mostly set up the. Oh my god, I just cannot do this properly. There you go. So we'll leave it as like boom, boom, and then we'll also do boom, boom. Ivysaur will just be chilling out over here. So your game plan is that you want to stuff like Grotle the early game first. Grotle is super important, and you want to get stuff like Celebi is like the biggest one to hide behind, and you also want to get like Ivysaur out. So your main 3 should be Celebi, Grotle, Ivysaur, and then Beautifly. Beautifly is like harder to get out, which is like the issue of like you want to get it set up, but you'll have to go for it immediately. But you need protection in order to make sure that the Grotle doesn't die. So Ivysaur is bulky enough. It can use the float stone super well. This is my favorite float stone target, is the Venusaur. Celebi will help stall for time. And then you have other flexible Pokemon here, especially with the amount of Pokemon recovery we have. It's like perfectly fine. And then after that, you want to try to get Loopy Lasso set up. And Loopy Lasso can still stall you time with the Celebi. And from there, you want to start doing stuff like setting up Decidueye or Venomoth and Roserade and get some chip damage that way. And going for like just small petty hits and spreading the damage out. Then you want to go for your like win conditions of pulling something out into the active that can't attack and then destroying them from the bench with either Roserade or Venomoth. The early game cards you're looking for the most are the Gloria. The Gloria is super strong, so is the Ball Guy. Sonia is okay, but she's not, she's not better than the other two most of the time. Goosehala is important. If you're in the early game, you want to grab Turffield, Capture Energy, and then more than likely Floatstone or U-turn board. Probably Floatstone though, since you're trying to get the Venusaur out, and Venusaur is the best Floatstone user. And if you're in the late game, like you could be a Seeker or Cynthia Caitlyn for the Goosehala, you want to grab Poison Barb, Virbank City, and then Counter Energy. You don't have to be super resourceful with your supporters because we have Lucidine and Cynthia Caitlyn and VS Seeker to ground them back. And you can discard your Pokemon pretty reliably too, because we have 3 ways of grounding them back as well. So that's generally the game plan. I'll try to get some gameplay of this deck soon, maybe. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys next time.